Welcome to Learning2Trust with Scott and Becky Quinlan. Our desire is to discuss topics such as marriage, infidelity, forgiveness, and our relationship with God, and our journey to find true identities. In this episode, I will discuss more about my story, how God changed my identity and took me from unseen to seen. Just a warning, today's podcast has some adult content that may not be suitable for little ears. Thank you for joining us. Here we go.
Hey, welcome. This is Learning to Trust with Scott and Becky. Thanks for joining us. Today, we are actually going to dive into Becky's testimony and story. We all have our unique story, and it's one of our special tools that God's given us to witness to others. And we've been trained to do it in like 1 to 2 minutes, but this will not be 1 to 2 minutes. This will be a pretty deep dive into our backgrounds and our stories to just give you guys more understanding of who we are, where we came from, and where we're going. So, yeah, let you get started.
All right. So, basically, I had a pretty great childhood. I lived in the country on a farm. We had horses and cattle. We used to show all the time. Those were really fond memories. We did live pretty far in the country, though, very rural farming community. And it was just my sister and I for the most part. So I was a little awkward, when school started. Always been that kid that didn't really want to be the center of attention, just kind of quiet in the background. But those were great years. Like, I was a total tomboy, like outside every day, just enjoying nature, enjoying the animals, like just very, I was more comfortable doing that than I was ever around people or like, I don't know. I just remember thinking like I understood these animals more than I understood people. I've just kind of always been that type of person. But anyway, the middle of my 8th grade year, Dad took a different job and we moved. And so I went from a class of, I think we had 24, which was a large class at my grade school, middle school, to a class of 100. That was really hard for me because I had never had to make new friends. These, the people in my class I just had known since I was little. So it was frightening and it was scary, and the people were really mean at first. I mean, it took me until that was middle of 8th grade year. It really took until my sophomore year before I had kind of felt like I fit in a little bit and had a few friends. And in that time, some changes that happened to our family, and I'm not going to get into that because it's not my story to tell. But I've been praying on how to present this because I don't. Yeah, like I said, this is my story, but things just got really hard at home. I'm not going to get into the details, like I said, but I don't know what I think I was seeking attention, but basically boys came into the picture like strong. Like, I had always been kind of like that. I don't know, I love like Disney movies and princesses, so I was always in search of this person to complete me, even at a young age. That was so important to me, like to find my knight or my prince or whatever. Just infatuated with that. And it started, I had my first boyfriend when I was about 15, and yeah, we didn't talk about super important things in my house. So, I spent the rest of my teen years and into college, like really seeking attention in that way. And I'm just going to come out and say it. I was promiscuous. Like, not super crazy, but I felt that that's how you showed love to someone of the opposite sex. Like, I didn't realize that was something that I was not living under a biblical worldview because we didn't go to church. I didn't have any of that type of upbringing at all. Church was maybe Easter, Christmas. I remember my grandpa teaching me the Lord's Prayer at his dinner table, just things like that. But I wasn't taught anything under that view, I guess. So I had a very worldly view of what love and relationships look like. So headed off to college, and drinking, really partying and drinking was big for me because I lived in a small town. There wasn't much to do. So we would cruise around and drink and have fun and have sex, and
Cruise Maine.
that was fun. We would cruise Maine. So and I had a few boyfriends in there. So yeah, went to college and graduated from there. Moved up north to Belvedere, Illinois, after I did some traveling. And in that time, I met Scott. And Scott was different. So I was just drawn to him in many ways. But one of the ways that I was really drawn to him is that you didn't want to have sex before we were married. Like that was, I think you wanted to.
No, we did. What are you talking about?
Well, once, but
Once.
Yeah, it wasn't that much.
Yeah,
Well, okay, we tried.
Yeah.
But it was important to you.
I think there's a
tried.
point where I was kind of not wanting to start a relationship that way because I know that things that start well end well, and so
yeah,
I think there was a period of time, but though where we were very intimate and active, and then we kind of rededicated ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
right.
we rededicated ourselves like a little bit before the wedding.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, he's right. I was remembering it wrong.
Yeah, you had a little Princess Fairy Tale thing going on there.
Okay, well, All right. So, yes. But in the beginning, that was like off the table, which I was like, what? You mean you want to be with me just because you want to be with me? Like, yeah. So that was refreshing because that was not the case in most of the guys that I dated. I'll say guys, not men. But anyway. So then we decided, he proposed to me and we were going to get married. And I had been attending church with you when I was here. And I decided to convert to Catholicism, and we were married. And got married in October. I think it was by, February that I found out we were pregnant with Emma.
It was March, yeah.
March,
yeah.
And so that happened really quickly. So we had done long distance relationship that whole time we were dating, like about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out we were pregnant right away. And then, I don't know. So we didn't have much time to learn about each other, figure things out, because life just started happening really quickly. So then we had Anna 10.5 months after we had Emma. And then different houses. Yeah. So somewhere in here, I decided that I was just going to be everything that I had wanted my mom to be. And I got this really warped idea of what this perfect mother should look like. So I feel like I really changed as a person because, when we started dating, I was the fun party girl.
Mm-hmm.
Just a fun person to be around. And then we got married and I was having to adjust to different lifestyle and different expectations from Scott. And then when we had kids, that's when it really hit, like this feeling of I got to get it together. I got to have everything perfect. My kids need to look a certain way. They need to act a certain way. I don't know, just Martha Stewart was thrown in there somewhere. And I just thought that I had to do all this crazy stuff to prove myself as a wife and mother. And I don't even think you were putting that pressure on me, but I think there was a disagreement between us as far as me staying at home with the kids. So I felt like I had to prove my worth in a way. to you to warrant the fact that I wasn't pulling in an income and I wasn't doing these things, and which is really just not healthy. It was.
Yeah, and I would say I had a very unhealthy too, like where this is your job, like I'm not doing this. Yeah,
Yeah.
like there wasn't any loving support from me. It was, oh, you took care of the kids all day and they were sick and getting laundry done. Too bad. Laundry, no, I need a shirt for tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that was, yeah.
It wasn't. So I lived in this, I guess, this place of just feeling like I was just falling short every day. Um, but appearances were really important to me at this time in my life. I mean, they kind of always had been up until this point, you know. I was like the person who didn't want to be seen, but desperately wanted to be seen and as someone like truly special, but was scared of that also. Um, you know, and I was insecure. I have struggled with my weight my whole life. And I didn't, you know, back when I grew up, it wasn't like oh, everybody's body is great, you know, like it wasn't. I feel like there's more leeway now than there used to be back then. And I look back at pictures and I'm like, oh my goodness, I wasn't even large, but in my mind I was different, I was big, and I was starting this path of thinking that I was just not even lovable or desirable because of that. And so I think I really started to shrink away. You know, and after having 3 kids, your body isn't the same and it just isn't. And so I get a lot, I still do, this is still something I struggle with, but I get a lot of comfort from food, that I'm working on to this day. And we don't help each other with that. You know, we kind of enable each other because it's embedded in everything we do. I mean, we live in the Midwest. You don't go anywhere without taking food. You don't gather without having food. You don't celebrate with having food. You know, like food is wrapped up in so many emotions for me. And so it is still a struggle to this day, but I think Jesus is so gentle in that and helping me through a lot of that stuff. So this kind of perfectionist spirit just kind of went into also my worship. Like I wanted to be Ms. Catholic of the United States. Like I just tried to be so good. Like
having 2 kids under a year was probably put you on the nominee
I was on the path, but like I sang, I read liturgy, I did, I don't know,
catechism classes.
Yeah, when we moved to Kansas, yeah, I taught catechism class. I worked for the kids' school at St. Malachy. I worked for the Diocese of Kansas City, St. Joseph when we lived in Kansas. Like, I really was striving so hard to be and do all the things that would make me the best Catholic there was, because I thought the more I could do, the closer I could get to God, really. That's really how I felt. But I was confused because I would go on a walk in nature and I would feel closer to God than I ever did in Mass. And I was confused. I'm like, God, how come I feel you here, but I don't feel you where they're telling me I'm supposed to feel you? And so I was conflicted all the time because, you know, when you're Catholic, and I don't want to dog on the Catholic faith. Like, I know there's plenty of really godly, beautiful people in the Catholic Church, but I feel like there's also a lot of deception happening in the Catholic Church and a lot of unbiblical teaching. But I kept, you know, they kept saying, oh, Jesus is in the Eucharist. Jesus is in communion, in the wafer and in the blood. It is him and it is his body and it is his blood. And this is where you find Jesus. And I was just so confused because I'm like, I'm looking for you, Jesus, but I don't see you. Like, I don't know. I was confused. So I struggled with communion and I struggled with confession because I did do confession a few times, but I didn't really care for it. I thought it was kind of, I don't know. But so we did not practice that. And then I would have this guilt because I was going for communion and I hadn't gone to confession. And so there was this circle of guilt and shame all the time within church. And I'm like, I just remember thinking one day, like, Jesus, I don't feel like this is the way you designed this. Where are you? So I had been searching for Jesus, even though I felt like I knew God the Father, I knew his presence. So anyway, that was kind of my faith journey at the time. So this was all happening. Scott, we talked about moving, and at first I was so surprised by that, but then I started to get really excited by the fact of us moving and a fresh start. And because I thought our problems, really, I had myself convinced that our problems and the things that we had between us was that's just how marriages are. And this is just what you do. That was my first thought. The second thought was, it's his job. He's miserable at his work. We're going to move and you're going to get this new job and our life is going to be great. Well, it was for a little bit. But then things started getting really bad. And I remember, so one thing about me, I love live music. And right before, I didn't believe in divorce though, because I thought I'm not going to divorce him. This is just my life from here on out. But things were getting really bad between us. And I remember going to a Florence and the Machine concert. And I just saw these people and they were just so free. They just, I don't know. It was a type of worship at this concert. It wasn't the worship I should have been getting involved in, but I just remember these people, the people surrounding me, just feeling so free of burden and all this stuff. And I was like, I want to be like them. And I was starting to get thoughts into my head about maybe not being married anymore. And that scared me, but I was tired of feeling the way I was feeling. So, I just had gotten to a really bad place. I want to talk about SCX for a little bit, because it's an important part of our marriage journey and any marriage, really. So if you have any littles around there listening in the background, you might want to not have them listen to this part. But we talked a little bit about my relationships before. Something happened to me, and I feel like because he took that off the table early on, for some reason in my mind, I felt like, oh, that wasn't so important to him. And so that wasn't a hugely important thing in my life towards him. But I felt like we were having sex regularly, but I felt like it was never enough. Like he always wanted more than I did. And I don't feel like I ever really turned you down though. I knew that was important to you. Did I?
I don't know.
I don't know. I felt like I wasn't mean about, maybe I did.
Too tired.
But it wasn't, but what I'm saying in that is, no, it was never what you thought you wanted. But in my mind, I thought I was providing plenty. I don't know. And that's still always going to be a little bit of an issue between the two of us, I think. But we're learning how to work through that. But I noticed a change in how things were going in the bedroom. It was not a dreamy, oh, let's, do this together. No, it was a very obligation. And honestly, things started to get a little more like, I don't know how to say this without being
hungry.
It was very hungry. It was very hungry. Like it was not healthy. Like at the time, I didn't know he was actively watching pornography. Now I know that is what he was doing. And having seen that type of content, I realized what was happening. Like he was needing more to fulfill that dopamine that was happening. And so things in the bedroom were getting a lot more racy than I was comfortable with, because he was wanting to fulfill his need and not thinking about mine. And so literally sex was just like, oh my gosh, let's get it over with. I hate this, but I did it anyway. But at a certain point in Kansas City, I was actually, I'm like, you know what? I have to make him happy. So I remember asking you to watch porn together. And we did that a couple times. You don't remember that?
Maybe. I don't know.
But we did that a couple times because I thought, oh, well,
Yeah.
this will make him more excited and more, again, I'm grasping at straws trying to keep this thing together. And then I found out how to do it on my own. And so I started watching it because I thought, well, if I watch it, then I'm going to know what he needs. And then it started to become something that I enjoyed watching. And so I started down a slippery slope of watching that content too. Like it started to, things were getting dark pretty quickly in that area. And so I didn't really want to be doing that, but it was something I found myself doing as well. Not healthy at all.
Yep.
But then the day that I found out started a crazy journey for me because I felt like I had a little faith, and then everything was shattered that day I found out, and then you gained your faith, and in a way it was a relief. Me finding out was a relief for him. So it was kind of like the end of his shame and whatever, but the beginning of mine, because now I had all this knowledge and I was just completely broken in every way. Like I didn't know who to trust, what to trust. What I basically started at zero, and I felt like I was building up who I was, who Scott was, who we were together. Like I forgave him that day and we stayed together. There was not a night we were ever apart. But just the whole rebuilding process was really kind of a weird one. So I always thought, like, I gave him my faith for a little bit and lost mine for a while. So I cried out to Jesus. He helped me in that moment. I feel like the Holy Spirit took over that whole situation. Yep. But then I really was like at ground zero. And so I remember, because I've always been a little more in tune to like just spiritual things happening to me, I started down the path of like new age. One of the very first things we did, remember, was go out to Portland, where my friend lives, and she is a practitioner of Reiki. And so she's like, hey, I can, come out here, just whatever you guys need to do. And I remember doing Reiki. I remember really like going out into nature, a lot of stuff. That progressed. That trip was important though, because I finally, I was praying though, which was weird. So I was praying.
That was also the trip where we watched that video on healthy and hungry touch, and how science and love come together. Right. And we watched on the plane. We actually, we started connecting that way on that trip too. So it was more than just that. A lot was going on at the time.
There was. So when I say that the Lord was helping us, like he was helping us in every way, like just find our way back to each other, not even back. It was all new because it was nothing like our marriage before. But learning, like the importance of holding hands, of looking at each other, of just touching each other when we're next to each other, just those little things. And then the importance of, when we would have intercourse together, then it would be like making sure to cuddle and to snuggle and to do all the things like to bring down. There's all the science about it. We're going to do a whole nother video about that. But just, we were learning ways to be intimate. Yeah. Because the only intimacy we had before was the act of sex. There was nothing leading up to it. There was nothing after it. It was boom, bam, thank you, ma'am. Let's go on to something else.
Turn over to the bed, whatever.
Yeah.
I do remember, though, that was the first time we actually started talking before and after, and started talking about stuff and actually working together as a team to understand what was healthy and hungry and what was good, what was bad, what could be better. That was the first that started happening right away after we watched that video.
It
Really,
did.
on that trip, I remember specifically.
Yeah. That was pivotal. We've even reached out to them to see if there's a better version of that, because it was pivotal in our healing. That was like a 2-hour dose of therapy that normally would have taken like years. But I really feel like that really did help. The other thing that happened on that trip is that I remember praying and sitting on a log. It had like moss all over it. And I just remember praying and just really sad about just everything. And I just remember coming to a point where I started thinking about my relationship with my mom and how it wasn't what I wanted. And I felt like a lot of my reactions and how I was acting was because of my relationship with mom. And I just remember like this little voice in my head. It wasn't audible, but it was just like, maybe she did the best that she could. And that hit me. You know, I don't know if you've ever had those pivotal moments in your life where just like the revelation of something is so huge that it just cracks down walls, it just tears things. And I felt like that was the voice, the Holy Spirit saying maybe she did the best that she could. And I'm like, you know what? That's right. Who am I to judge, anything? And I just remember forgiving her in that moment. And that was such a freeing moment for me. Like my life, that whole trip was huge for us. But the next year or so I was kind of doing more in New Age, but I was also praying. We started a different church. And then all of a sudden I had, I don't know, I just had a turning point where I'm like, no, this New Age stuff. And I want to do a video on this because I feel like this generation is really into New Age, but it's dangerous and it's dark. And I had gotten to a point in it where something really scared me. And I got a glimpse of just how dark and evil it is. And I put it all away. Crystals, rocks, Reiki, everything that I had that I was doing a New Age, I put it to the side because we'll talk about that later. But then I felt like Jesus really started changing my heart. And the same thing Scott talked about, like just the things I didn't want to drink. And I used to go out and binge drink with my girlfriends all the time. I remember even getting to the point where I was seeking attention, like nothing ever happened, but I wanted attention from other men. Never happened. But drinking and all that stuff, all that fell away. I didn't even want to do it. There were movies I couldn't watch, song lyrics I couldn't sing anymore. Just completely started to change and just started seeing people differently. I started seeing myself differently. Like he was just rebuilding me from the ground up. And then we just started this journey where we pretty much ditched our old life, because our old life was all about things and wealth and looking good to others. And we just completely we left it behind and we started a new life with Jesus. We moved down to Florida. We got hooked into a really great church that just taught us the word. We just started reading the Bible and understanding the word of God. And we were just really loved on. Then we did an immersive discipleship program. We had a great couple, Cheryl and Damien, that mentored us. They would meet with us separately and discipled us and kind of just taught us what Jesus was all about and his study and what he asked us to do. And I was just so hungry for the word. I just remember just diving into my Bible, praying. And it just became very clear to me that this was our new life. Like, this is what I wanted to live for. I just found purpose in that. I just wanted to help people. Right away we started telling our story, where we would not have anything bad we wouldn't have talked about, because that might have made us look a little bit bad. But now we just talk about hard things because that's life. Like everybody is experiencing these things. And I feel like if you don't talk about it and if you don't get it out of the darkness, you've got to bring light to it, you know? And so every time we talk about this, every time we mention something that shouldn't be mentioned, you're bringing it out of the darkness, and the power, that power goes away. I really do feel that way. Gosh, there's so many ways to wrap this up, but just one of the biggest lessons I had, and this was just a couple weeks ago, was that my worth is not in the things that I do. My worth is solely in who God created me to be. And that has been a huge lesson for me. That was also one of those freeing moments where I just felt like the chains were falling off of me. And this was just a month ago, wasn't it? I mean, it was like a month ago where I just realized, I've heard it so many times. I've said it to so many women myself, you know, because I had felt some freedom in this area, but the chains completely fell off where I'm like, there is nothing I can do to get to heaven. It's only in that relationship with Jesus and accepting him as my Lord and Savior, and the fact that he died for me. I even had a vision one time where Jesus was on the cross and he looked right at me and he reached out his hand to me and he said, I did this for you. And that just kind of broke me wide open and said, you know, I am important. He sees me. That thing that I had been longing for my whole life, to be seen and heard and recognized for who I am, not what I did, not what grade I got, or, you know, like, he saw me because he created me and he did it for me and he died for me and he resurrected for me, and I will be with him eternally. And that's what we want for everyone that we talk to. This is why we're doing this, not for us. Because honestly, this getting in front of a camera, it scares me. Like, being vulnerable, knowing that I can walk to Walmart and someone has just heard about my sex life with my husband, like, that's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
But our goal is to give people freedom that they're longing for, that they need. And yeah. So anyway, that's our story. That's my story, my part of the story, I guess. And there's much more, of course. I could go on and on, but yeah, I'm just excited to see what comes next. I'm excited to see how people will relate to what we're saying or not relate or have questions. And so I just encourage you, if you do have questions, I really don't mind talking about anything. Like, TMI, I don't know what that is. Like, you know, I really don't mind talking about anything. So if there is anything you want to talk or discuss or have questions about, like, feel free to comment or message us. And yeah, but anyway, anything you want to add?
I mean, you do have the gift of where people, I always say, they go 0 to life story in 60 seconds. Like, people have maybe a Walmart checkout and somebody will come up and just start talking to her and just divulge these crazy things to her about their life. And yeah, so Becky's always had that gift where people easily talk to you. You got your certificate and, like, was it mental health
First aid,
yeah. So you're not, like, you know, able to do a whole lot, but you are trained in that too. So yeah, it's definitely a gift you have, is be able to listen and help people.
Yeah. And I just, lately, I've just been asking, what is my role, Lord? How do you want to use me? Because I've always had this grand picture in my head that we would be off or doing something in a foreign country or doing something crazy. And I just remember I was mowing the cemetery and earlier this spring. And I'm like, Lord, just what do you want me to be doing right now? And he's like, you're a mom. Like, you're a mom. And I'm like, I really feel that. That was the one thing I felt like I was really, really good at and I loved. And so I just feel like I'm I want to be mom to the families in our church. I want to be grandma to the little kids, and I have a heart for women and just helping them through just our concept of who we are, and changing that from the lies that we've believed about ourselves in all of our growing up to now our true identities in Christ. And like, no, you are not this. Like, I am not fat. I am not this. I am not that. I am a child of God. I am, so it's like, let's replace those thoughts in our head with the truth that Jesus says about us. And so I really feel strongly in wanting to do that and help women become who they are meant to be in Christ Jesus. So, yeah, I'm excited. This one wasn't too hard. I was so nervous about this. But no, I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and just, help us share our message by liking and subscribing, and stay tuned. We have some pretty cool topics coming up, some deep dives into some of the things that we've learned, and ways that you can just work through some of these things. So thank you for joining us here at Learning to Trust with Scott and Becky. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Check back next week for our new episode. And also, please like, share, and subscribe to help our ministry reach those in need. And as always, if you have any questions or are seeking help, please contact us. We would love to hear from you. Thank you again, and God bless.